Greetings, listeners. This is Linda with Eco Peace Vision YouTube channel, and we're continuing on with key Bible reading number 8, suggested by God. Today's date is March 15th, 2020, and this is some pictures that I'm posting on the YouTube channel about Michmash. The town still exists. It may have a slightly different name right now. One of the readings I found, it's just north and to the east of Jerusalem. And the map that I posted on the YouTube channel is from BibleHub.com. I went to BibleAtlas.org, and that is related to BibleHub.com, and then under Atlas search, that's where I put the town's name of Michmash, and then I came up with this, and that's how we got there. Then if we look at Google Maps and we zoom in, we can see that it's northeast of Jerusalem. And we can also see from the map that it's on a hill. And from other pictures on the internet, there are ancient ruins there. Some other maps on the internet talk about very deep valleys around it. So it had to do with control of the land, being on the top of the mountains. So knowing that geography helps to continue on with this, to understand what's going on here. So I'll just start back at the beginning of chapter 13 on 1 Samuel. And this is the interlinear version at BibleHub.com. So it's in the Old Testament, it's Hebrew to English or other languages, and we are reading it from right to left. And then the New Testament is Greek to English in the interlinear version. So 1 year Saul reigned, and when 2 years he had reigned over Israel, and chose for himself Saul 3,000 men of Israel, and were with Saul 2,000 in Michmash, and in the mountains of Bethel, and 1,000 were with Jonathan in Gibeah. This area is in the, I'm just breaking in here to say that this is in the area of Benjamin, the zone of the family of Benjamin. So it says, and in the mountains of Bethel, and 1,000 were with Jonathan in Gibeah of Benjamin, and the rest of the people he sent away, every man to his tent, and attacked Jonathan the garrison of the Philistines that was in Geba, and heard of it the Philistines. And Saul blew the trumpet throughout all the land, saying, Let hear the Hebrews. And all Israel heard that it said, and attacked Saul a garrison of the Philistines, and that also had become an abomination, Israel, to the Philistines. And were called together the people to Saul at Gilgal. And the Philistines gathered together to fight with Israel 30,000 chariots and 6,000 horsemen, and people as the sand on which is on the shore, the seashore, in multitude. And they came up and encamped in Michmash, to the east of Bethaven. And when the men of Israel saw that in danger they were, for were distressed the people, then hid the people in caves, and in thickets, and in rocks, and in holes, and in pits. And some of the Hebrews crossed over the Jordan to the land of Gad and Gilead, and as for Saul, he was still in Gilgal. And all the people, trembling, followed him. Saul's unlawful sacrifice. Verse 8. Then he waited 7 days, according to the time set by Samuel, but not did come Samuel to Gilgal, and were scattered the people from him. So said Saul, Bring here to me a burnt offering and peace offerings. And he offered the burnt offering. Samuel rebuked Saul. Verse 10. And it came to pass, as soon as he had finished presenting the burnt offering, that Samuel came and went out Saul to meet him, that he might greet him. And said Samuel, What have you done? And said Saul, When I saw that were scattered the people from me, and that you not did come within appointed the days, and that the Philistines gathered together at Michmash, then I said, Now will come the Philistines on me at Gilgal, and to Yahweh not I have made supplication. I just want to clarify that it translates YHWH as Yahweh, just putting the letters in there, but the actual Hebrew letters is YHWH, and in the ancient Hebrew it was YHVH. And I understand it really means self-existent one. I am that I am. Okay, I'll say this again. Verse 12. Then I said, Now will come down the Philistines on me at Gilgal, and to Yahweh not I have made supplication. Therefore I felt compelled and offered a burnt offering. And said Samuel to Saul, You have done foolishly, not you have kept the commandment of Yahweh your God, which he commanded you. For now Yahweh would have established your kingdom over Israel forever. But now your kingdom not shall continue. Has sought Yahweh for himself a man after his own heart, and has commanded him Yahweh to be commander over his people, because not you have kept what commanded you Yahweh. And arose Samuel and went up to Gibeah of Benjamin, and numbered Saul present, the people present with him, about 600 men. The next title, it has been titled, is not this in scripture, but it's been titled, Philistines Raid Israel. Verse 16. And Saul and Jonathan his son, and the people present with them, in Gibeah of Benjamin. In English, we want to say Gibeah of Benjamin, but it's Hebrew terms, Hebrew words. So, Gibeah of Benjamin. These are places, and a lot of them are still existing in Israel area. So, the place, the city is like Gibeah in Hebrew, and the region is the family of Benjamin or Benjamin, that would be like a state or a province. I just want to point out, in case anybody was dozing off out there, that this was so important, this last bit, where Saul took it upon himself to, in his panic, and actually his son had started. In Samuel chapter 13, verse 3, that's where we read that Jonathan had 1,000 men and Saul had before that it said Saul had 2,000 men, and Jonathan attacked. So they didn't have any communication. There was no order from Saul for Jonathan to attack. And then that's when Saul, just tried to, different things happened, and Saul tried to cover for his son. But we'll see in the next chapter, Jonathan also, kind of on his own, felt like he was working with God, but he wasn't following the authority of his father, who was supposed to follow the authority of God, of Yahweh, through Samuel. Saul took it upon himself to do a sacrifice, not just a prayer, but a sacrifice to God. And that was not his role at all. And I pointed this out before, I believe. But anyway, so that's just so important to think that God says, and Samuel said, this is it. You would have had a lasting kingdom, but you're out. God has picked somebody else already. Right? But now your kingdom not shall continue, has sought Yahweh for himself a man after his own heart, and has commanded him, Yahweh, to be commander over his people, not because not you have kept what commanded you Yahweh. So I don't know where, evidently Yahweh had specifically told Saul not to do that, and he did it, to do the priestly thing. I mean, there's a long history of just the Levi priests were doing the priestly things, and then Samuel was the commander in a way, listener of God, and so when the people wanted a king, really the king needs to be listening to the listener of God, the one with the really good connection. So later we can see that David has a connection. So we've got a new king being chosen coming up, David, that will listen to God directly. Okay, so the thing is, 1 Samuel goes on till about 31 chapters. So I'm tempted to go through the rest of the readings because what was heard was 1 through 3 is important, but the whole book is good. And then these other readings were given to me. So I guess I can continue on with the whole book, but I could just summarize it. But I have learned so much just with this part, that I've read so far about kings and leadership. So we have these same lessons we're really needing to learn right now in the United States and probably other countries. Today is April 29th, 2023, and I'm continuing on I'm reading from the English Standard Version of the Bible, and anyway, it's pretty direct translation from the Hebrew and the Greek, I believe, in the New Testament, Hebrew and Old Testament. And when it'll say Lord, and it'll be all capital letters in the Old Testament, and then probably in the New Testament it will probably say, well, we'll just get to that when we get to it, but it's good to get clarification with the interlinear version in the New Testament when anybody's talking about Father God versus and the Holy Spirit versus King Jesus. Okay, so chapter 13, verse 15. And Samuel arose and went up from Gilgal. The rest of the people went up after Saul to meet the army. They went up from Gilgal to Gibeah of Benjamin. I'm probably not going to pronounce everything right as far as the Hebrew name, so I might just stick with how it's kind of written in here, reading it in English. And Saul numbered the people who were present with him, about 600 men. And Saul and Jonathan, his son, and the people who were present with them stayed in Gibeah of Benjamin. But the Philistines encamped in Michmash, and raiders came out of the camp of the Philistines in 3 companies. One company turned toward Ophrah, Ophrah, to the land of Shual, Shual. Verse 18. Another company turned towards Beth Horon, and another company turned toward the border that looks down on the valley of Zeboim toward the wilderness. Verse 19. Now there was no blacksmith to be found throughout all the land of Israel, for the Philistines said, quote, "Lest the Hebrews make themselves swords or spears," unquote. Verse 20. But every one of the Israelites went down to the Philistines to sharpen his plowshare, his mattock, his axe, or his sickle. And the charge was 2/3 of a shekel for the plowshares and for the mattocks, and 1/3 of a shekel for sharpening the axes and for setting the goads. Goads. Verse 22. So on the day of the battle there was neither sword nor spear found in the hand of any of the people with Saul and Jonathan, but Saul and Jonathan his son had them. Verse 23. And the garrison of the Philistines went out to the pass of Michmash. That's just really important to notice that the Israelites, when they're battling and when they're winning, when God is with them, they don't even need weapons. So this just helps to underscore that you want God on your side in battle, and it doesn't matter if you have even a weapon or not, if you're strong or not. So a lot of our soldiers know about this, and our police officers. Okay, 1 Samuel chapter 14, the title of it in the English Standard Version, Holy Bible, is Jonathan Defeats the Philistines. And then this has a couple subheadings in it, and chapter 15 is also about Saul's kingship, and then we start to hear about David. Okay, so chapter 14, Jonathan defeats the Philistines. One day Jonathan, the son of Saul, said to the young man who carried his armor, "Come, let us go over to the Philistines' garrison on the other side." But he did not tell his father. I'm breaking in here. Just notice that. He's all acting on his own. So chain of command is broken. Okay. Verse 2. Saul was staying in the outskirts of Gibeah in the pomegranate cave at Migron. The people who were with him were about 600 men, including Ahijah, the son of Ahitub, Ichabod's brother, the son of Phinehas, son of Eli, the priest of the Lord in Shiloh, wearing an ephod. I'm going to break in again to just let you know that Shiloh, that town means, I believe it means peace. And in Genesis, maybe number 49, chapter 49, we hear something about the Lord of Shiloh. To me, it sounds like it alludes to Jesus, actually. But so this was the first town they came to with the Ark of the Covenant, the box. Ark means box. And it seemed to be a communication device that they brought from Egypt. And we think Pharaoh was not happy about that when that was discovered. That's why they got chased. That's what a listener of God understood and told me. Okay, so the same listener of God that heard for me to read these readings. So then also inside the Ark of the Covenant was the 10 Commandments. So there was another box, another ark, I believe, or at least maybe they were separate. Anyway, they were in the Ark of the Covenant, the 10 Commandments. And so that's where they brought the ark, and that's the first place they set up a tent that was like a temple, and Eli was the main priest, and then that was Samuel was, you got that at the beginning of this chapter, 1 Samuel. Okay, so Eli, son of Ahiah, son of Ahitub, Ichabod's brother, son of Phinehas, son of Eli, the priest of the Lord in Shiloh, wearing an ephod. Break in again to say an ephod was some kind of a priestly garment. And I think that is what had the stones. They had stones on there that would like light up, yes or no, when there's nobody like Samuel who had a direct connection with God. The Levi priests could go to it and kind of ask, what does God want? And the stones would light up, yes or no, on the ephod. Okay, that was called the Urim and the Thummim. The stones were called that. Okay, so, and the people did not know that Jonathan had gone. Verse 4, within the passes by which Jonathan sought to go over to the Philistine garrison, there was a rocky crag on one side and a rocky crag on the other side. The name of one was Bozez, and the name of the other Seneh, Seneh. Verse 5, the one crag rose on the north in front of Michmash, and the other on the south in front of Geba. Verse 6, Jonathan said to the young man who carried his armor, come, let us go over to the garrison of these uncircumcised. It may be that the Lord will work for us, for nothing can hinder the Lord from saving by many or by few. Verse 7, and his armor-bearer said to him, do all that is in your heart. Do as you wish. Behold, I am with you, heart and soul. Verse 8. Then Jonathan said, quote, behold, we will cross over to the men, and we will show ourselves to them. If they say to us, wait until we come to you, then we will stand still in our place, and we will not go up to them. But if they say, come up to us, then we will go up, for the Lord has given them into our hand, and this shall be the sign to us. Unquote. Verse 11. So both of them showed themselves to the garrison of the Philistines, and the Philistines said, look, Hebrews are coming out of the holes where they have hidden themselves. Verse 12. And the men of the garrison hailed Jonathan and his armor-bearer and said, come up to us, and we will show you a thing. And Jonathan said to his armor-bearer, come up after me, for the Lord has given them into the hand of Israel. Verse 13. Then Jonathan climbed up on his hands and feet, and his armor-bearer after him, and they fell before Jonathan, and his armor-bearer killed them after him. Verse 14. And that first strike which Jonathan and his armor-bearer made killed about 20 men within, as it were, half a furrow's length in an acre of land. And there was a panic in the camp, in the field, and among all the people. The garrison and even the raiders trembled. The earth quaked, and it became a very great panic. Verse 16. And the watchmen of Saul in Gibeah of Benjamin looked, and behold, the multitude was dispersing here and there. Then Saul said to the people who were with him, count and see who has gone from us. And when they had counted, behold, Jonathan and his armor-bearer were not there. So Saul said to Ahijah, bring the ark of God here. For the ark of God went at that time with the people of Israel. Now, while Saul was talking to the priest, the tumult in the camp of the Philistines increased more and more. So Saul said to the priest, withdraw your hand. Verse 20. Then Saul and all the people who were with him rallied and went into the battle. And behold, every Philistine's sword was against his fellow, and there was great confusion. Now the Hebrews who had been with the Philistines before that time, and who had gone up with them into the camp, even they also turned to be with the Israelites who were there with Saul and Jonathan. Likewise, when all the men of Israel who had hidden themselves in the hill country of Ephraim heard that the Philistines were fleeing, they too followed hard after them in battle. So the Lord saved Israel that day, and the battle passed beyond Beth-aven. Okay, that's the end of that section. The next section is titled Saul's Rash Vow. And I just want to observe that they won the battle, even though Jonathan wasn't following his dad, who was following Samuel. Jonathan did check in with God. And so they won that battle. But later you see God doesn't choose Jonathan to be king next. He chooses, we'll get to that, David. So anyway, just something to keep in mind. Jonathan didn't fully obey line of command. He should have been trying to discern what does Samuel hear from God. Okay, I want to celebrate that we've made it this far. We have a few more subsections in chapter 14 and 15 where we can see some more mistakes that can be a mistake our current leaders could make when we rely on human leaders instead of God, and instead of those who are listening to God, which is the same thing. We can end up doing some human things that are less than optimal for results. And so, if you want to lead anybody to this series, one easy way is on Spotify under Eco Peace Vision. There's a 2-minute show that introduces this Key Bible Reading series and asks people to come over to Eco Peace Vision on YouTube. Go to the playlist, and there you'll have the whole playlist. You don't see all the videos on Eco Peace Vision YouTube channel because some of them I did publish on Eco Peace Christian __ Linda channel. But there is, other material, but this is the main thing to focus on right now. And thanks for listening. If you want to give support to this program, you can go to paypal.me/EcoPeaceVision. Thanks. Okay.